A billionaire's midnight cry for help, answered by a night shift doctor with a life-changing secret. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I really need your help. We have noticed that the channel is losing traction lately, and subscribing is one of the simplest ways you can support us. It is quick, it is free, and it allows us to keep bringing you more stories like this. Your support truly means everything to us. Let us keep this channel growing together. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or your country in the comments below so we can see how far this little community reaches. Thank you very much for being here. Now let us get back to our main character. Tonight's story begins with a billionaire who is finally too tired to pretend he is fine, and a night shift doctor who has no idea that the man begging her to stay on the phone is the reason her family fell apart. The city outside his windows glittered like it always did, but inside the glass penthouse, it was unbearably quiet. Ethan Cole sat alone on the edge of a leather sofa, his elbows on his knees, his dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar. The television played some late-night news that he was not really watching, words spilling past him like static. His right hand shook as he reached for the small orange bottle on the coffee table. The label with his own name blurred for a second. He had taken enough sleeping pills this week to sedate an army, and still his mind raced every night, replaying boardroom fights, lawsuits, and faces he could no longer name but could never forget. A sharp pain tightened in his chest, not dramatic, just a deep, crushing pressure that would not let go. Ethan pressed his palm against his sternum and tried to breathe slowly. He had private doctors on speed dial. He had a concierge medical team that would arrive in a helicopter if he snapped his fingers. He did not call any of them. Instead, his gaze snagged on a folded brochure half tucked under a magazine. It was from a free community clinic his company had sponsored last year for good press. On the back, in faded blue ink, was a 24-hour hotline. Under it, a simple line. If you are scared and alone, you can call. Scared and alone. The words felt childish, but they were the most honest ones he had seen in months. Ethan fumbled for his phone, his fingers numb. The screen glowed 12:07 a.m. as he dialed the number. The ring felt endless. With every beat of his heart, the pressure in his chest grew heavier, hot and cold at the same time. At a cramped clinic 3 floors above a grocery store on the other side of town, Dr. Maya Tran rubbed her eyes and stared at the blinking hotline phone. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, bathing the waiting room in tired yellow. She had been on her feet for 12 hours, patching up a cut hand here, checking a blood pressure there, listening to stories that all sounded like different versions of the same struggle. She picked up the receiver and forced her voice to be gentle. Riverside Community Clinic. This is Dr. Tran. How can I help you tonight? All she heard at first was breathing. Rough, too fast, like someone was trying not to cry and failing. Then a man's voice came through, low and hoarse. I cannot breathe, he said. My chest, something is wrong. Please do not hang up. Maya straightened in her chair, every trace of exhaustion burning away. She asked for his symptoms, his age, his address. He avoided his name, mumbling that he was just in an apartment uptown, but he read out the street, the building, the floor. As he spoke, she pulled a notepad closer and scribbled it all down, her handwriting tight and sharp. Listen to me, she said, steady and firm. You might be having a heart emergency. I am calling an ambulance to your address right now. Stay on the line with me. I want you to count your breaths. In through your nose, out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3. For a few moments, he tried. She could hear his effort, the catch in his throat, the scrape of something heavy as he slid off the sofa to the floor like she told him, so his heart did not work as hard. Somewhere behind him, a television anchor kept talking about the stock market, oblivious. Why did you call us? She asked softly, trying to keep him conscious while she signaled the nurse on duty to dial 911. You must have other doctors. On the other end, the man gave a broken laugh that turned into a cough. Because you are the only ones who do not know who I am, he whispered. Please, just treat me like anyone else. Before she could answer, there was a sharp clatter, the sound of glass shattering. The phone hit something, and the line crackled with static. Sir? Can you hear me? Maya's voice rose, tight with sudden fear. Sir, stay with me. Can you say anything at all? Silence answered her, except for the faint echo of a news anchor and the distant siren that had just begun to wail somewhere in the city night. The siren grew louder until it swallowed the night. Two paramedics pushed through the glass doors of the penthouse tower, racing an empty gurney toward the elevator. Upstairs, Ethan Cole lay on the polished wood floor, one hand still stretched toward the fallen phone, shards of glass glittering around him like ice. His breathing was shallow and ragged, his skin pale against the dark marble. Male, late 30s, acute chest pain, possible cardiac event, one paramedic said into his radio as they worked. They checked his pulse, started oxygen, attached sticky pads to his chest for the portable monitor. A jagged line jumped to life on the screen. "He is hanging on," the second paramedic muttered. "Let us move." The elevator doors closed on the chaos of the penthouse and opened again into the cold, bright world of the emergency room at Westbridge Medical Center. Nurses met them at the bay, wheeling Ethan under the harsh white lights. "Any identification?" a nurse asked. "Wallet in the suit jacket." "But no time to look," the paramedic answered. He was on the phone with a clinic hotline when he went down. They called it in. Back at Riverside Community Clinic, Dr. Maya Tran still held the silent receiver to her ear long after the call had died. Her heart pounded in a rhythm that did not match her calm voice. "Dispatch says they have him," the night nurse told her gently. "They have already reached the building. They are taking him to Westbridge." Maya exhaled slowly and set the phone back into its cradle. The plastic clicked louder than it should have. She stared at the hotline number printed in blue on the device. How many times had it rung with? Prank calls, with people who just wanted to talk, with cries she could not answer in time. "Please do not be too late," she whispered, though she was not sure who she was talking to. The paramedics, the man on the floor, or the God she was never sure she believed in. The next few hours blurred into routine. A child with a fever, an older man with blood sugar too high, a woman who just needed someone to listen to her panic attack. Maya moved from room to room, her body on autopilot, but every time a siren wailed in the distance, her mind jumped back to that low, frightened voice on the phone. Near dawn, the clinic quieted. The nurse at the front desk called to her. "Dr. Tran, there is a call for you. It is from Westbridge Medical Center." Maya wiped her hands on a paper towel and picked up the line. "Dr. Tran speaking." A man's voice answered, brisk and professional. "Dr. Tran, this is Dr. Harold Lynn, head of cardiology at Westbridge. I was told you handled a hotline call earlier tonight. Male patient, shortness of breath, chest pain, address at the Parkview Tower." "Yes," she said, straightening instinctively. "Is he alive?" "He is. He had an acute coronary episode with a panic component. We stabilized him, but it was close. The paramedics said he insisted you stayed on the line. He responded to your instructions." There was a pause, softer. Not many people can keep a patient that calm while they think they are dying. Maya felt heat rise to her face, part pride, part anger that it had been necessary at all. "I just did my job," she said quietly. "Sometimes that is the difference between life and death," Dr. Lin replied. "Listen, we are short-staffed for the next 24 hours. The patient is being transferred to a private suite. He is important to this hospital. I would like you to come over and help manage his care while he is here. You already built trust with him. This kind of work is not for the faint of heart, but I think you are up to it." Maya looked around the small clinic. The plastic chairs, the chipped paint, the bulletin board covered in flyers. Her whole life, it seemed, had been built in places like this. She had never stepped into Westbridge except as a visitor. "Do I have a choice?" she asked softly. "Of course," Dr. Lin said. "But I hope you will say yes." She closed her eyes for a moment and saw her father on his last night. The beeping monitors, the cold hallway of a county hospital that could not afford the newest drug. She had promised herself she would not run from difficult cases, not ever again. "I will come," she said. "Send me the details." 20 minutes later, Maya walked through the automatic doors of Westbridge Medical Center. Everything felt sharper here. The air smelled like antiseptic and money. The floor tiles shone like polished stone, and the overhead lights hummed in a steady, confident way that said nothing ever broke here for long. A security guard checked her badge, then escorted her to a private elevator that required a key card. They ascended in silence. Maya watched her reflection in the mirrored walls. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun, simple scrubs that looked almost out of place in the sleek metal box. When the doors opened, the noise of the main hospital vanished. The top floor was hushed, almost hotel-like. Soft lighting, framed artwork, plush chairs. A nurse with a perfect bun and a perfectly pressed uniform greeted her. "You must be Dr. Tran," the nurse said. "I am Karen. Your patient is in Suite 12. They walked down a wide corridor where each door looked more like the entrance to a luxury apartment than a hospital room. Only the discreet heart monitor sounds and the faint beeping gave the truth away. Karen pushed open the door to Suite 12. Maya stepped inside and stopped. The man on the bed was hooked up to machines, but he was not surrounded by tubes like the intensive care units she knew. An oxygen cannula rested under his nose, an intravenous line ran into his arm, and a heart monitor traced each beat in bright green on the screen. His face was relaxed in sleep now, but she recognized the line of his jaw, the shape of his mouth, even though she had only glimpsed him in her mind through his voice. This was the stranger who had begged her not to hang up. Without the panic, he looked younger, almost peaceful, like someone who had finally surrendered to a rest he had been chasing for years. "He has been sedated lightly," Karen explained. "Cardiology wants him monitored closely. They said he latched onto your voice, so they want you to be the one he sees when he wakes up. We do not usually bring in community clinic doctors up here. You must be special." Maya ignored the compliment. She moved to the bedside, checking his chart. Age 38. No listed allergies. A long column of medications. Under name, the field was blocked out with a temporary code. "Why is his name hidden?" she asked. Karen hesitated. "He requested privacy, and the board agreed. Apparently, he is some big deal downtown. Finance, or tech, or something. All I know is everyone keeps saying, 'Do not mess this up.'" Maya set the chart back into its holder and wrapped the blood pressure cuff around his arm. As the cuff tightened and released, she counted the beeps from the monitor and watched his chest rise and fall. "Hello again," she said quietly, even though she knew he could not hear her. "You called us because you wanted to be treated like anyone else. For tonight, I can promise you that." His fingers twitched just slightly, a tiny movement against the white sheet. Maya felt it like a shock all the way up her arm. She did not know his name, not yet. She did not know that his company's logo was printed on the back of a letter she had once written as a desperate teenager. All she knew, in this quiet, expensive room, was that his heartbeat was steady under her care, and that somehow, without seeing his face until now, she had already been part of the fight to keep that heart beating. For the first hour, Ethan does not move at all. Maya checks his vitals every 15 minutes, writing numbers in the chart in her neat, careful handwriting. Heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation. All steady. The machines beep a soft, steady rhythm in the background, like a metronome in a quiet music room. Outside the window, the sun begins to rise over the city. The glass towers across from Westbridge catch the first light, turning from black silhouettes into silver shapes. Maya pulls the blinds halfway to keep the glare off his face. Her phone vibrates once in the pocket of her scrub top. "Hey." Text from the nurse back at Riverside. "How is your mystery man?" it says. Maya types a simple answer. "Alive. For now." She slips the phone away and reaches for a warm washcloth. Sedated or not, he is still a human being who deserves dignity. She wipes his forehead and his temples, smoothing back a strand of dark hair that has fallen across his brow. "You scared me tonight," she murmurs, even though he cannot hear her. "You and your fancy address and your anonymous panic." The room is quiet, but talking makes the space feel less like a museum and more like a place where life is allowed to happen. So she keeps going, just like she does with the lonely patients at the clinic. "At Riverside we have chairs that squeak every time someone sits down," she tells him. "The coffee tastes like burned water, and the heater works when it feels like it. But people laugh there. They complain, they tell stories, they fight to live. You would probably hate it." The corner of his mouth does not move, but his fingers curl just barely, the tendons in his hand tightening for a second and relaxing again. Maya stops mid-sentence, her breath catching. "Ethan," she says softly, the name feeling strange and familiar at the same time. "If you can hear me, try that again." Nothing. The monitor keeps its calm, patient beat. She debates for a moment, then steps into the hallway and finds Karen at the nurse's station. "I think he may be responding to touch," Maya says. "His hand moved when I spoke to him. Not a reflex, more like intention." Karen raises an eyebrow. "You are sure?" "I have worked with coma patients before," Maya answers. "This feels different. Maybe it is nothing, but Dr. Lin should know." Karen nods. I will page him. When Maya returns to the suite, she pulls a small notebook from her pocket. It is old, the cover soft from years of being opened and closed. The first half is filled with notes from medical school. The second half holds memories that have nothing to do with textbooks. She flips to a blank page and writes the date at the top. First night, she writes. Patient in suite 12. Anonymous male, mid to late 30s. Possible cardiac event. Responds to verbal grounding and touch. Shows signs of fighting to stay here. She looks at the words fighting to stay here and feels a familiar ache in her chest. Her father had fought too. The difference was that he fought in a crowded ward with peeling paint and flickering lights, not in a private suite with art on the walls. She closes the notebook and tucks it back into her pocket. Next to another folded paper she carries everywhere, an old copy of a letter she wrote when she was 15. The hospital where her father lay had given her a pamphlet with the name of a pharmaceutical company on the back. She had written to the man at the top, the one whose face she had seen on television. She had begged him to help cover a treatment that insurance would not touch. He had never written back. At least, she had never seen an answer. Now, without knowing it, she stands over his bed. Ethan stirs again sometime after 7. It is not much, just a shift of his shoulders and a tightening around his eyes, like a person frowning in a dream. Maya is at his side in an instant, one hand on the rail, the other lightly resting on his forearm. You are in the hospital, she says in a calm, clear voice. You are safe. You had an emergency, but we are taking care of you. If you can hear me, try to breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. His chest rises a little deeper on the next inhale. The monitor line lifts and falls. Dr. Lin steps in quietly, watching from the doorway for a few seconds before he speaks. You were right, he says. He is tracking your voice. Maya does not take her eyes off the patient. What is his name, doctor? Lin hesitates. For now, you can call him Mr. C. There are privacy concerns. Maya bristles at the answer, but she lets it go. The patient on the bed is more important than the politics swirling above his head. I do not care about his money or his title, she says. I care about whether he wakes up with brain function intact. And that, Lin answers, is exactly why I wanted you here. The day shift begins to filter in, but Maya stays by the bed. Her official hours at the clinic are over, yet she does not reach for her bag. Instead, she adjusts his pillow, checks the 4, and keeps talking. She tells him about the sunrise he missed. She tells him about the child with the fever who went home smiling. She tells him about a little community clinic where the walls are thin, but the hearts are thick. Every now and then, his fingers twitch or his breathing changes as if he is listening from very far away. Maya does not know it yet, but each word she speaks and each small act of care is doing more than keeping his body stable. It is knocking, slowly, gently, on a door deep inside a man who has not allowed anyone to reach him in years. The second night in Suite 12 felt different from the first. The machines still hummed. The air still smelled faintly of antiseptic and something floral from the discreet diffuser in the corner, but there was a new tension under the calm. It sat in Maya's chest like a small electrical current. All day, nurses and specialists had come and gone, checking numbers, adjusting medications, speaking in low voices at the foot of the bed. The chart on the wall grew thicker with each passing hour, but every time someone asked about the patient's mental status, the answer was the same. Not fully awake, they said. Not yet. When the evening shift ended downstairs in the regular floors, Maya came back up to the private level. Her own body ached from lack of sleep, but she felt pulled toward Suite 12 the way the tide is pulled by the moon. She washed her hands, tied her hair back again, and stepped into the room. The city outside was a sea of lights now. The window reflected her silhouette as she moved to the bedside. Good evening, she said softly, as if she were walking into an apartment and not a hospital suite. It is Dr. Tran again. I promised you I would come back. She checked his vitals first. Heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen levels, all within safe ranges. Then she picked up the warm basin and washcloth that the aide had left by the sink. Let us make you a little more comfortable, she murmured. She worked carefully, wiping his face, his neck, his hands. Each time her fingers brushed his skin, there was the slightest flicker of response, a muscle tensing, a faint shift. She could not be entirely sure whether it was reflex or something more, but she chose to believe that some part of him was coming closer to the surface. When she finished, she pulled a chair closer and sat down. The room was quiet except for the monitor and his breathing. "I am going to read for a while," she told him. "If you are listening, consider it a free audiobook." She took out her worn notebook, but instead of reading from it, she flipped to a page near the back. There, taped neatly, was a copy of the letter she had written all those years ago. The edges were yellowed now. "Dear Mr. Cole," she began, her voice steady. "My name is Maya Tran, and I am 15 years old." She paused, feeling her throat tighten. She had not read the letter aloud since the night she wrote it, sitting at a cafeteria table while her father slept upstairs. "I am writing because my father is very sick," she continued quietly. "His doctor says there is a new medication that could help him, but our insurance does not cover it. The pamphlet from the hospital says your company makes this medicine and that you care about patients. My family cannot afford it. I am asking you to please help us." Her eyes stung, but she kept going, her voice barely above a whisper. "My father is the kindest person I know. He works hard. He pays his taxes. He loves me and my mother. I know you are very busy and very important, but if you read this, please consider helping us. Even a small discount would mean that my father might be able to see me graduate." The last lines blurred for a second. She swallowed. "He died 3 months later," she said, closing the notebook. "No one from your company ever called us back." The words hung in the air between them. She had not planned to say them here, in this room, to this unconscious man whose face she barely knew. But something about the quiet and the steady beep of the monitor made the truth feel necessary. "I chose this work because of him," she said. "Because of what we could not afford, and because of what we lost. I told myself that if I could save even one person from feeling what I felt that day, then my life would mean something." She leaned forward, resting her forearms on the edge of the bed. "So here we are," she added softly. "A girl who never got an answer, and a man who called a free clinic when he could have called anyone." A sound broke the stillness. It was not the monitor, not the oxygen machine. It was a low, rough sound, like someone trying to speak with a dry throat. Maya's head snapped up. His eyelids fluttered once, then again, longer this time. His fingers curled around the sheet, knuckles whitening for a second. "Sir?" she said, her voice suddenly bright with focus. "If you can hear me, try to open your eyes." He obeyed in slow motion. The lids lifted, revealing eyes that were unfocused at first, pupils slow to adjust to the dim light. He blinked several times, as if the world were too bright, too sharp. "You are in Westbridge Medical Center," Maya said calmly, slipping into the firm, soothing tone she used in emergencies. "You had a heart event, but you are stable now. You are safe." His gaze wandered across the ceiling, then to the window, then finally to her face. For a second, he just stared, confusion and exhaustion mingling in his expression. "You," his voice came out as a dry rasp. "The phone." Maya felt a small shock of recognition. "Yes," she said. "I am the doctor you spoke to on the hotline. You scared me tonight." A faint, broken smile pulled at one corner of his mouth. "Sorry," he whispered. The effort clearly cost him. His eyelids drooped again, but he kept them open with visible effort, as if afraid that if he closed them, she would disappear. "Do you remember your name?" she asked gently. He hesitated. She saw something flicker behind his eyes, a shadow of calculation, of old habits. "Ethan," he said at last. "My name is Ethan." It was only a first name, but it was more than Mr. C. Maya nodded. "Ethan," she repeated. "All right. Ethan, you came very close to not waking up. But you did. Your heart is bruised and tired, but it is still working. The next days are important. You will need to rest. You will need to let other people help you." He swallowed, the muscles in his throat moving painfully. "Will you?" His voice broke. He tried again. "Will you be here?" The question caught her off guard. Patients asked things like that at Riverside all the time, but there was a different weight to it here, in this private room that cost more per night than she made in a month. "Yes," she said simply. "As long as I am assigned to your care, I will be here." His eyes softened, a hint of relief loosening the tension in his jaw. The monitor line smoothed, as if his heart had released a breath it had been holding. "Good," he murmured. "Then I can sleep." His eyes closed, but this time it was not the heavy, empty shut of sedation. It was the natural drift of a body that trusted the person beside it just enough to rest. Maya sat back in her chair, her own heart racing in a way she did not quite understand. She did not know that the name he had given her, Ethan, was one half of a pair of words printed on the letter in her pocket. Ethan Cole. She did not know that the man whose life she had just helped pull back from the edge was the same man she had once begged for mercy. All she knew, in that moment, was that he had chosen to stay, and somehow, she had been the voice that called him back. The days after that first awakening fall into a strange new rhythm. Ethan drifts in and out of shallow sleep, but each time he wakes, he is a little more present. His eyes track more quickly. His questions come a little clearer. His body is still weak, but his mind is no longer trapped behind that distant fog. Maya becomes a constant in that new world. Every morning she steps into Suite 12 with a fresh set of scrubs and the same simple greeting. Good morning, Ethan. It is Dr. Tran. How is your chest today? Sometimes he answers with a joke. Still attached, he says one day, his voice rough. I guess that is progress. Other days he is quieter, staring at the ceiling as if it holds an answer it refuses to give. The nurses notice that he cooperates more when she is there. He lets her check his blood pressure twice without argument. He does his breathing exercises when she counts beside him. When the physical therapist arrives with a walker and a schedule, Ethan looks toward Maya first, as if waiting for her to confirm that he really does have to get out of bed. You almost died, she reminds him calmly. If you want to stay alive, you have to move. 5 steps today, 10 tomorrow. We are not negotiating. He grumbles, but he does it. One slow step, then another. His bare feet shuffle on the polished floor while the heart monitor follows along, beeping a little faster with the effort. You sound like my board members, he mutters under his breath once. Always pushing. Board members do not usually care if you can walk to the bathroom, she replies. I do. He gives her that crooked half smile again, the one that appears when he is caught off guard by her honesty. Later, when he is back in bed and the therapist has gone, he studies her over the rim of his water cup. Why are you here, he asks. You told me on the phone you are from a community clinic. A place like that is not usually connected to a floor like this. Maya leans against the counter, arms loosely folded. Dr. Lin asked me to come, she says. The paramedics said you were calmer because I stayed on the line. They thought you might respond well if I stayed involved. That is the official answer, he says. That is why they wanted you here. I asked why you said yes. She hesitates. The easy answer is on her tongue. Because it is my job. Because a patient needed me. But something about his expression tells her he will hear the difference between a polite reply and the truth. I said yes because I know what it is like to feel helpless in a hospital room, she says at last. I know what it is like to want someone to stay when everyone else has somewhere more important to be. He watches her for a long moment. Someone stayed with you? He asks. For a while, she answers. Then he did not. Ethan does not push. He just nods slowly, as if filing the information away. In the afternoons, other people visit. A man in an expensive suit with silver at his temples leans over the bed and speaks in low, urgent tones that stop the moment anyone else enters the room. A woman with sharp eyes and a tablet under her arm stands near the window, reporting on shareholders and fallout and media rumors. Ethan listens with his jaw clenched, answering in short, precise sentences that make the air feel colder. Maya stays out of the way during those meetings, checking monitors and writing notes, pretending not to hear words like liability and pending suits. Once, when the man in the suit leaves, he pauses in the doorway and turns to her. Thank you for keeping him alive, doctor, he says. He is important to a lot of people. Every patient is important to someone, she replies. That is why we do this. He gives a tight smile, as if he is not used to being answered that way. After the door closes, Ethan looks at her. Do you ever get tired of it? He asks. Saving people who sometimes do not deserve it. Maya thinks of drunk drivers who walked away from crashes that killed others. She thinks of people who screamed at nurses and then cried when their scans came back clean. I do not decide who deserves to live, she says quietly. I decide who gets my best effort. Tonight, that is you. His gaze softens in a way that makes her chest feel strangely tight. Then I will try not to waste it, he says. As the week goes on, the bruised feeling in his chest begins to fade. His lab results improve. His color returns. The nurses whisper that he will probably be discharged to a rehabilitation facility soon, or maybe home with strict instructions and a monitor. One evening, Maya finds him sitting up in bed with his legs over the side, feet on the floor. The monitor alarm is blinking a mild warning. "You are supposed to call for help before you do that," she says, walking in. "You could faint." "I am tired of lying down," he answers. "I wanted to see if my legs still work without an audience." She moves closer, ready to steady him if he sways. "Do they?" she asks. He looks up at her, eyes clearer than she has seen them yet. "They do now," he says. "Because you came in." It is a simple line, but the sincerity in his voice sends a small wave of warmth through her. She presses it down quickly. "Professional first. Everything else second." "Since you are already sitting," she says briskly, "we can try for a walk to the door and back." He groans, but when she offers her hand, he takes it. His palm is warm, his grip firm but careful. As they walk the length of the room together, her pole rolling beside them, it hits her that this is not just muscle and bone healing. This is a man who has built a life on control, learning what it feels like to lean, even a little, on someone else. "You asked me a question earlier," he says when they reach the far wall. "Now it is my turn." She raises an eyebrow. "Is that how this works?" Doctor-patient interviews. "Why did you become a doctor?" he asks. "You could have done anything else. Something easier. Something that does not keep you awake all night answering calls from strangers." Maya looks at the framed abstract painting on the wall instead of at his face. The answer is on the folded letter in her pocket, but she is not ready to unwrap that yet. "Because I saw what happens when people who need help cannot get it," she says. "I decided I did not want to be another person who looked away." Ethan studies her profile for a moment, then nods. "I am glad you did not look away from me," he says quietly. By the end of the walk back to the bed, both of them are breathing a little harder. For him, it is physical effort. For her, it is something else, something she has not named yet. As he settles back against the pillows, he closes his eyes briefly, a small, almost shy smile on his lips. "You know," he says, "whatever my life looks like after this, I am starting to think that midnight phone call was the smartest thing I have done in a very long time." Maya does not answer right away. She adjusts his blanket, checks the monitor, and lets herself look at him. Really look, for the first time without the filter of emergency. A billionaire who called a free clinic instead of his private team. A man who is learning to walk again, one slow lap at a time. A heart that nearly stopped. Choosing every minute now to keep going. She feels the faintest tremor of something she has spent years keeping carefully buried. Hope. For a few days, everything seems almost simple. Ethan walks a little farther down the hallway each morning. The color has returned to his face. His appetite is better. The nurses talk about discharge plans and follow-up appointments in cardiac rehab. On the surface, it looks like the story is about to end in a clean, easy way. Under the surface, something else begins to move. One afternoon, Maya steps into Suite 12 and finds Ethan sitting up in bed, wearing a soft gray t-shirt instead of a hospital gown. There are two people with him. One is the man in the expensive suit with silver at his temples. The other is a woman in a navy dress, tablet in hand, eyes sharp as glass. "We just need your signature," the woman is saying. "It is a standard internal report, Ethan. We frame this as an isolated stress event. Overwork. Nothing more." Ethan sees Maya at the door, and his shoulders relax a little. "We can finish this later," he says. "I have a doctor who actually cares about whether I live long enough to sign anything." The woman forces a polite smile. "Of course. We will be outside." As they pass Maya, she catches a glimpse of the folder in the man's hand. A logo is stamped in the corner in dark blue ink. She has seen it before on pamphlets, on pill bottles, in nightmares. Coal biotech. Her stomach drops, just for a second. She keeps her face neutral as she crosses the room. "Blood pressure check," she says, wrapping the cuff around his arm. Her fingers are steady, but inside everything feels slightly off balance. "They are overreacting," Ethan mutters. "I am alive. The company will not crumble because I had a bad night." Maya studies his face. There is a tightness around his mouth that has nothing to do with physical pain. "Bad nights usually have causes," she says. "Your heart did not just decide to throw a tantrum for fun." He looks at her, and for a moment it seems like he might say something real. Then he closes it off with a small shake of his head. "Maybe one day I will tell you the whole story," he says. "Today is not that day." Later, when her shift at Riverside ends, Maya finds herself standing alone in the tiny clinic office, the hum of the old refrigerator filling the silence. Her eyes go to the filing cabinet in the corner. She knows exactly which drawer to open and which folder to pull out. Tran Min, her father. She lays his chart on the desk and flips through the pages. Lab reports. Doctor notes. A photocopy of the drug information sheet for the medication that was supposed to save him. In the top right corner of that sheet, in the same dark blue ink, is the logo of Cole Biotech. Her throat tightens. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out the folded copy of her teenage letter. There, in careful handwriting, is the name she has spent years trying not to think about. Dear Mr. Ethan Cole. The letters blur for a second. She hears his voice in her memory, rough and scared through the phone. Please do not hang up. She sees him in the hospital bed, laughing weakly about being pushed to walk. It cannot be a coincidence. She knows that. But knowing and accepting are two different things. Back at Westbridge that night, while Ethan sleeps, Maya sits at a staff computer and pulls up his electronic chart. The privacy flags are everywhere, but on this terminal, she can at least see his full name. Cole, Ethan James. Her chest feels too small for her heart. She scrolls back through the notes from the emergency department. Initial labs. Electrocardiogram. Medication reconciliation. One detail makes her stop. Current outpatient prescription, CBX-17, experimental beta blocker, Cole Biotech trial. Dose high. Start date, 7 days prior to admission. She opens the lab result attached to the note. The blood level of that drug is marked in red, far higher than the target range. For a moment she considers simple explanations. A misread label. An overenthusiastic physician adjusting the dose. A pharmacy error. Then she remembers the tight way the man in the suit spoke. The way the woman in the navy dress kept her voice low when she said, isolated event. The way Ethan said, maybe one day, like he already suspects more than he is willing to admit. Maya prints the relevant pages and slides them into a plain folder. She knows she is stepping into dangerous territory. Investigating the medications of the founder of a massive pharmaceutical company is not part of her job description. It could easily cost her any chance of advancement. It could cost her more than that. But the image of her father's face on his last day rises up in her mind, and the weight of her own promise presses hard on her chest. Never again, she whispers to herself. She takes a slow breath and walks back toward the private elevator, the folder tucked close to her side. Her plan is simple for now. Ask questions. Look at the pharmacy logs. Talk to Dr. Lin. And, when the moment is right, ask Ethan what really happened in the days before his midnight call for help. She has no idea yet that the answers will tear open not just his past, but hers too. The deepest secrets are about to change everything. Subscribe now to catch the dramatic twist that is coming in the next chapter. The next morning, Maya decides that questions are no longer enough. She needs proof. Between rounds at Riverside, she slips into the staff records room at Westbridge with the plain folder under her arm. The hospital's electronic system has told part of the story, but paper still has a way of catching what screens try to hide. In the pharmacy log binder, she finds the section marked for Suite 12. Each entry lists a date, a medication, a dose, and the signature of the prescribing physician. The first page looks routine. Standard heart medications. Pain control. Nothing alarming. Halfway down the second page, the pattern changes. CBX-17. Dose, increased to high. Initials of ordering provider. HL. Her chest tightens. HL could be anyone, but in this building those initials usually stand for one person. Dr. Harold Lin. Maya flips back to the electronic note in her mind. Dr. Lin had told her about the experimental beta blocker, but he had never mentioned that he had pushed the dose far past the recommended range. The red number in the lab report flashes in her memory. For a moment, doubt hits her. Maybe there is a medical reason. Maybe there was no time to explain. Maybe she is chasing shadows because of old grief. Still, something does not sit right. On the next line, someone has written a correction. Order verified per protocol. Dose appropriate. The signature under that statement is not a doctor's at all. It belongs to someone from Cole Biotech's clinical liaison team. A representative who should never have the power to approve or override a hospital prescription. Maya feels the air leave her lungs in a slow, controlled exhale. This is not just a mistake. This is a company hand reaching directly into a patient's chart. She copies the relevant pages, careful not to disturb the originals, and slides them into her folder. She adds the abnormal blood level report and a printout of the trial guidelines she finds through the hospital research portal. In clear black text, those guidelines state that the dose Ethan received is listed as unsafe outside of a monitored study environment. He was given it anyway, at home, days before his collapse. That afternoon, she finds Dr. Lin in his office, a stack of charts on his desk and a half-finished cup of coffee growing cold beside his keyboard. "Dr. Tran," he says, glancing up. "I was going to page you. Our patient in Suite 12 is doing well." "I know," she answers, closing the door behind her. "That is not why I am here." She sets the folder on his desk and opens it, spreading the copies in front of him. The pharmacy log, the blood level report, the trial protocol. "I need you to explain this," she says quietly. His eyes move over the pages. For the first few seconds his expression is blank. Then his jaw tightens. "Where did you get these?" he asks. "From the hospital system," she says. "Which means I have every right to see them as his physician. Why was a cold biotech liaison verifying a high dose that your own protocol says is unsafe?" Dr. Lin rubs a hand over his face, suddenly looking older. "It was supposed to be a routine adjustment," he says. "I received a call from Nathan Cole's office. They said there was new internal data that justified a higher dose for Ethan. They wanted him to be a showcase for the drug when it went to market. They sent over their people, their numbers, their confidence." "Nathan Cole," Maya repeats. "His brother." "Half-brother," Lin corrects automatically. "Acting chair of the board. He reminded me that the hospital receives significant funding from Cole Biotech. He also reminded me that Ethan is complicated. If he refused the change, they wanted me to make it for him." Maya stares at him, stunned. "So you did," she says slowly. "You increased the dose because a corporate executive told you to, not because your patient needed it." Lin meets her gaze, shame flickering across his features. "I told myself the data looked solid," he says. "I told myself it was just one step higher. I told myself I was helping him by trusting the company that built the drug. And then he called your hotline in the middle of the night." The room feels very small, very quiet. "This was not an accident," Maya says at last, her voice low and steady. "Someone used that drug to push Ethan Cole's heart toward failure. Someone inside his own company." Dr. Lin does not argue. He looks down at the papers again, at the signature from the Cole Biotech liaison. "You are right," he says. "And we both know exactly whose name is attached to this approval." Maya follows his gaze to the neat, looping signature at the bottom of the page. It is a name she has heard only once, in the doorway of Suite 12, from the woman in the navy dress. "Lydia Marsh, Chief Operations Officer, Cole Biotech." Maya leaves Dr. Lin's office with the folder pressed tight against her chest. The hallway feels longer than usual. Every step toward the elevator echoes with the same thought. This was not just negligence. Someone tried to control Ethan Cole with his own company's drug, and they almost killed him in the process. When she enters Suite 12, Ethan is awake, propped against the pillows, scrolling aimlessly through a muted news channel. The stock ticker at the bottom of the screen keeps flashing his company's name. Cole Biotech down 6%. He looks up when he sees her. "You look like you have bad news," he says, watching her face carefully. "Is there something wrong with my heart again?" "Your heart is the part that is doing the best," Maya says. "We need to talk about everything else." She closes the door, then moves to the bed and lays the folder on his lap. "What is this?" he asks. "Evidence," she answers. "Of what happened to you before you called the hotline." She walks him through it slowly. The pharmacy log, the abnormal drug level, the trial protocol that clearly labels his dose as unsafe, the signature from Lydia Marsh authorizing the increase, the note that mentions a call from Nathan Cole. As she speaks, the color drains from his face. His hands tighten on the edges of the paper until his knuckles are white. "Nathan pushed this," he says quietly. "Lydia signed it. They said it was a publicity win, a chance to prove our drug could handle the highest-risk patients. They told me it was safe. They told Dr. Lin the same," Maya says. "Except they added one more thing, that the hospital depends on your company's money, that he should not argue." Ethan closes his eyes for a moment. When he opens them again, something has changed. The usual tired distance is gone. In its place is a sharp, cold clarity. "They used me," he says. "My own family, my own company, used my life as a marketing stunt. If you had not picked up that phone, I would already be a tragic headline and a very convenient martyr. The words hang heavy in the room. Maya hesitates, then pulls one more paper from her pocket. The folded, worn copy of the letter. There is something else you need to see, she says. He takes it and unfolds it carefully. She watches his eyes move over the lines, the handwriting of a 15-year-old girl begging for her father's medication, asking the head of Cole Biotech to help, even a little. Dear Mr. Ethan Cole. His throat works as he reaches the end, where the shaky signature reads, Maya Tran. He looks up at her, stunned. You wrote this, he says. Yes, she answers. We never heard back. My father died 3 months later. I never saw this letter. Ethan says, voice rough. I swear to you. Someone filtered it before it reached my desk. Probably in the same office that decided your father was not profitable enough to save. The realization hits them both at the same time. The same culture that ignored a desperate teenager's plea has now nearly killed the man whose name was on the door. Ethan sets the papers aside, his jaw set. This ends now, he says. How? Maya asks softly. I may not be able to undo the past, he answers, but I can expose the people who turned my company into a weapon. I can call the regulators. I can call law enforcement. And I can call a board meeting that Nathan and Lydia will not see coming. He reaches for the bedside phone and presses a number on speed dial. This is Ethan Cole, he says when a voice answers. I want you to secure every record related to CBX 17 immediately. No one alters anything. No one deletes anything. Then I need you to schedule an emergency session with the full board and prepare to welcome investigators. We are done hiding. Maya watches him, seeing not the glossy magazine version of a billionaire, but a man who has finally chosen which side of his own story he wants to be on. And Dr. Tran, he adds, covering the receiver for a moment. When the time comes, I will need you to stand beside me. Not as my doctor, as the person who refused to look away. She meets his gaze and nods once. I will be there, she says. The storm breaks 3 months later. Regulators have moved in. Investigators have combed through emails, trial records, and board minutes. Lydia Marsh resigns under pressure and is let out of the glass tower past cameras that finally see her for who she is. Nathan Cole is escorted into a black sedan by federal agents, his expensive suit doing nothing to hide the handcuffs at his wrists. Ethan does not watch from a distance. He stands at the microphone in front of the courthouse, thinner but stronger, one hand on the podium, the other holding a single sheet of paper. My name is Ethan Cole, he tells the crowd. I built Cole Biotech to save lives. Somewhere along the way, people in power twisted that mission. They harmed patients. They nearly killed me. That is on them, but the culture that allowed it is on me. Today that ends. Behind him, on the steps, stands Dr. Maya Tran in a simple blazer over her scrubs. She has already given her testimony to the investigators. She has already handed over the folder that started everything. Now she watches as Ethan announces his final move as CEO. I am stepping down, he says. The company will pay damages and will be rebuilt under independent oversight. The majority of my own shares will fund a new foundation that supports community clinics and patients who are denied the care they need. Dr. Maya Tran has agreed to help lead it. The crowd erupts with questions. Ethan steps back, his eyes finding Maya's. For a moment, the noise fades, and it is just the two of them again, like the night on the phone when it all began. Later, on the rooftop of the renovated Riverside Community Clinic, the city glows below them. The old hotline phone is mounted on the wall inside a glass case, a small plaque beneath it reading, the call that changed everything. A table has been set near the edge of the roof, simple but warm. String lights sway in the breeze. Maya arrives in a dark blue dress, her hair loose for once. Ethan waits in a plain suit with no tie, one hand behind his back. You know, she says, smiling softly. When I wrote that letter at 15, I did not imagine it would end with dinner on a rooftop with the man whose name I wrote. If I had read that letter, he answers, I would have done everything to help you. I cannot change that failure, but I can spend the rest of my life making sure no one else's plea is ever ignored. He brings his hand forward. It is her old notebook, the one with worn edges. When she opens it, there is a small velvet box nestled in the cutout center, right under the taped copy of her letter. Inside, a simple ring catches the light. Maya, Ethan says, his voice steady but full. You were the one who answered when I cried for help. You told me the truth when no one else would. You helped me tear down the parts of my world that were hurting people and build something better in their place. I do not want to walk that new road without you. Will you marry me and keep telling me the truth for the rest of our lives? Tears shine at the corners of her eyes. She closes the notebook, still holding the ring between her fingers. Yes, she says. On one condition. He laughs quietly. Of course there is a condition. What is it? That we never forget where this started, she replies. With a free clinic, a hotline phone, and 2 people who refuse to look away from pain. Ethan nods, his throat tight. Deal. He slides the ring onto her finger as the city hums below, not as a distant kingdom he owns, but as a community he now serves. In that moment, the billionaire and the night shift doctor are no longer patient and physician, no longer founder and whistleblower. They are simply 2 healed hearts choosing each other and choosing responsibility at the same time. Thank you for joining us for this cinematic adventure. If you want more untold or real stories of billionaire love and redemption, please subscribe and choose your next true heart journey on your screen now.